Welcome. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in just a moment. Nice to see you all. Welcome to the Grade Decision Intelligence Demand Trends monthly webinar series for our colleges or universities. We're excited and we're thrilled to have you join us today. My Grade DI colleagues and I are here to answer your questions throughout the session, so feel free to use the Q&A or chat at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. We'll certainly follow up afterwards if we run out of time. Today, we're diving into academic program evaluation and growth for higher education. Stick around for that second half of our webinar. We've got something truly exciting to share that can give your students' success, including retention, a significant edge. A quick note on housekeeping. We will send a link to the slides and video recording to your email within the next day or so. And now, without further ado, I will hand things off to Bob Atkins, who is the founder of Grade Decision Intelligence and is also the best-selling author of Start, Stop, or Grow, a data-informed approach to academic program evaluation and management. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Marianne. Appreciate the wonderful introduction. Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. I know you have busy schedules, and we'll do our best to do this efficiently and give you some insights into what's going on out there in the world. So let me see. So agenda. What is a program evaluation system will come first. For those of you who aren't devotees of Gray, this is our core business, and I'll explain what it means. Then we'll touch on student demand, employment, emerging technologies, and I'll give you a brief summary at the end. So what is academic program evaluation? Let me first distinguish it from program assessment. Assessment is looking at the materials in a program, the instruction, quality, and so forth, to try and figure out how you better teach that program. That's how I think of it. I'm not sure this is a Webster's dictionary kind of definition. I distinguish it from evaluation because evaluation is answering the fundamental question, do we start, stop, or grow this program? So if you will, it's the existential question of what to do with that program, not the question of how do I do it better. And by the way, both are really important. It's not that we just don't know how to do assessments, so I don't talk about that. And we leave that, as you might imagine, to the faculty and other academics who are involved in those processes. So when you start to evaluate programs, number one is mission, and it's really the dominant characteristic of a good program evaluation. A healthy program needs to be aligned with the mission of the institution, and even a small program that isn't aligned, that may be losing money and have very few students, but is critical to the mission, is still something you're going to want to keep in your institution. And I'll come back to that in a moment. Second part is academics. Is the program up to your academic standards? Are the students in the program passing external exams like the nursing exam, the NCLEX? And that's a key ingredient, that it is indeed rigorous enough to be appropriate for your college. Then we get to markets, and this is where Gray can really help out. We do keep some statistics on academics and academic performance, but the heart of our business is helping you understand the markets for your academic programs, what students want, what employers want, how much employers are willing to pay, and so forth. Oh, and I should importantly say competition as well. Why do we do that? Because markets drive margins. If students don't want to take a program, the revenue declines, the margins decline. And if employers want graduates, but students don't want to go, that's a problem too, and it will often hit your margins. And if you're not careful, it can lead to capital expenditures on which you earn no return, because you got to have students interested or the program doesn't really work. Certainly not financially. Now, you might say, why margins? We're all not-for-profits. And that's a very good question. And the fundamental answer is margins fund mission. The other part of it is that you need a portfolio that balances out and provides enough funding to sustain the institution. That does not mean that every program needs to stand on its own 2 feet financially. You would expect to see in margin analysis that there are a group of very high contribution margin programs And those are funding the low margin programs that are critical to your mission. And that's absolutely fine. The only place it gets sticky is when you have a program that's low performing financially and not aligned with the mission. That's troublesome, but it's also fairly infrequent. So once you have the data on markets, margins, academics, and your insights on mission, how do you actually make a decision? And we would argue that that requires engagement of the right people, the right information, and a tight but rigorous evaluation process. We typically do workshops there. So in 2 days, the faculty and administration can reach agreement on what the right programs are to offer. And those are very inclusive workshops, as they need to be, so that voices are heard from around the institution. So imagine a workshop with 40 or 50 folks from the academic side of the house as well as the administrative side of the house, making these decisions together using the right information. That can be very transformative in terms of what decisions you make, and creating the understanding that the decisions are open and fact-based, not political. So that's really key. The second thing, though, around that is it shouldn't just be a once every 3-year event. You do actually have to manage programs on an ongoing basis. Now, historically, that was very difficult to do because pulling the data together to inform that management process was extremely time-consuming. And as a result, it really wasn't practical to try and look at the performance of your programs once a year, for example. Well, that really isn't true anymore. You can get the data. Obviously, we provide it. Some schools try and get it themselves. And for internal data, that can work. But you do need to have the data available to you on an automated basis, whether from an external or internal source, so that you can review programs on a much more frequent basis and adapt to changes in the market. Now, that doesn't mean that you suddenly launch new programs every week and throw some out every week. It more means that you're going to adjust where you invest so that you put the marketing money, for example, into programs where there's room for growth, and therefore generate additional funds that can help sustain the portfolio. So what's missing often is that management process. What has to get looked at? When does it need to get looked at? By whom? And how does those decisions flow through the organization? Now, let's take a look at one of the drivers of program success, which is student demand. And I'm going to start with Google keyword searches. First, how do you read this chart? Well, the dark blue is 2023, the medium blue is 2024, and the light blue is 2025. So what we want to see is what we're seeing here is a stack of bars that go up from left to right. That means this program in the month of April has been growing for 3 consecutive years. In fact, in April this year, Google search volume for higher ed went up 25%. And search volumes for programs have increased more than 10% year over year for 15 of the last 16 months. So we're seeing a very persistent trend here, indicating that we should be seeing growth in enrollment in higher ed. And I'll share those statistics with you in just a moment. So the bad news, costs are slightly up for Google searches this month, up to $14.29 per click. Keep in mind that a click is about, it takes about 100 clicks to generate one student. So at a minimum, I shouldn't say about, it's at least 100 to generate one student. So that $14.29 turns into $1,400 when you adjust it for the probability of a student actually enrolling. And it goes up from there. So this is an expensive channel. We don't show Google search volumes to advocate that you get into that channel. What we're doing is looking for trends in the level of competition. And those trends are expressed by changes in price. So what we're seeing here is a fairly level amount of competitive intensity, and therefore a fairly constant cost for Google cost per click. Now, what's growing on Google? Not surprisingly, and here we're looking at Google search volume and the number of incremental searches that are taking place on the internet for these April this year compared to April last year. Business Administration Management is up. It is the largest program in the United States. So this isn't that big a percentage increase, but it is the largest unit increase in interest in higher education programs. Interestingly, economics is coming in second, up 244,000 searches. Then we have a series of fairly random things. Education up 205, public health up 158, fashion, apparel, and design up 86, and public administration up 83. We do have a couple of STEM fields here: economics, I mentioned, and aviation aerospace, which was up 90,000 searches. And we have a couple of tech programs that made the list. And I'm honestly a little surprised there weren't more of these: system, networking, and LAN management, and cybersecurity, both up well over approximately 80,000 in one case and 102 in the other. So a very diverse set of things that are growing. To my surprise, I wouldn't have expected business to be up here. Business has actually been a bit in decline recently as it fragments out into things like data analytics, and students who would have been traditional business students end up in those business analytics, data analytics programs. So this is a pretty encouraging sign for business programs. Now, in terms of cost, these are nosebleed levels of cost, $43 per click. So again, multiply by 100 to get a notion of what the cost might be per student. And you're looking at things that are running $4,300 per student at the top of the list there. Now, what do these programs have in common? My belief is that the thread that runs through here, and that what drives the cost, is that these are typically programs that can and be run online and are run online by major online program operations like SNHU and others. And they bid very aggressively for the keywords in these large programs, and then deliver them in an online format where their cost of delivery is relatively low, so that they can afford to spend this much acquiring a customer. We do have a couple of things that are more unusual. Electrical and computer engineering at 34. I would not have expected anybody to be spending $34 to get an engineering student, let alone 30 per click, 3,400 or more for an actual student. And then we see online educator, school counselor, and middle school teaching. Again, all programs that I believe, maybe not middle school teaching, can be offered online and run through that relatively low-cost delivery mechanism so they can afford to spend money on marketing. Now let's look at enrollment trends. Now remember, our Google data said enrollment should be up, and it should have been up for a year or two by now. And what we see is just that. Unfortunately, not up 25% the way Google was, but nonetheless, the long slide in enrollment in bachelor's and master's programs seems to be coming to a close, which would certainly be a welcome event for all of us. 2023 enrollment in bachelor's programs is up 0.2%. Not the greatest growth, but still not declining. And in 2024, we're up 1%. So I would hope that we'll see those numbers improve actually from there as we move forward. And then you can see at the master's level, didn't really fully turn around in 23, but it is now turning around in 24. So, and keep in mind that total enrollment, we're still working through some of the impacts of COVID here, where we have a couple of very weak years at the beginning of this period that are still flowing through as those students matriculate in school. Again, some good news. It's not 10% growth, but we're not shrinking anymore, which is terrific. One thing that's not on the chart that's worth remembering is the fastest growing segment in bachelor's programs is actually high school students taking courses at the college level, either in their high school or at college. So those dual enrolled students are a very fast growing segment. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they account for most of this 1% growth. Now, let's take a look at bachelor's fall enrollment and what was biggest. And no surprise here, business administration and management was the largest program with 690,000 students enrolled across the US. Really kind of an amazing number. We've got pushing close to 1 million students in that program. I'm a little surprised that registered nursing dropped to third place, but in second, we have general studies. We do have a couple of healthcare programs that made the top. I mentioned registered nursing. Psych also made it up here. And I think it's always been a large program. I think the mental health issues that we're seeing among students in higher ed is going to tend to lead people into psychology, in part to understand themselves. So I expect that one will continue to not only be large, but grow as well. Then we see some STEM programs, computer science, biology, mechanical engineering, all with over 150,000 students. Business, besides business itself, we have 76,000 students in finance and another 165,000 students in accounting. And in bringing up the rear is one other program, criminal justice and corrections, at 156,000. Now, keep in mind, when I say bringing up the rear, this is the top 10 programs out of 1,500 programs. So this is still a very, very large program by comparison with most of the programs in higher ed. So interesting and eclectic group of large programs here from 4 or 5 different disciplines. Now, let's take a look at growth over the 5-year period. And tech really dominates this list with number 1 in computer science with 74,000 additional students, cyber security number 2 with 53,000 additional students, business analytic up 25,000, data analytics or data science up 20,000, and computer and software engineering up 9,000. So in fall enrollment and growth, 5 of the top 10 are tech related. Now, I would say business analytics also could be construed as a business course. So keep that in mind. And I do believe it cannibalizes the traditional MBA a bit too, or traditional business program, I should say, a bit too. So that's not all new students to higher ed. Many of those are students who might have come in and taken a business program, but are now taking business analytics. We have a couple of healthcare programs that made the list: health services, allied health general, and exercise physiology. And then finally, we have elementary education and teaching, and that added 10,000 students. And I hope that continues to grow as we desperately need those folks out in our schools and teaching. And I hope some of them, I know it's going to sound chauvinist, are men, so that our boys can be more successful as they move through grade school, high school, and on into college, where I think all of you know, but it's now 60-40 female to male ratio in college. And I feel like we're leaving a lot of men behind, and that's not good for higher ed because it decreases enrollment. And as I think we can all see, not very good for our society either, having a undereducated male population. So, and one last point on that, that needn't happen in any way to the detriment of women. We don't need to cut back on the number of women to add men. We got plenty of space in higher ed for all of them. We just need to increase enrollment in a demographic that's really very challenged right now. So business, what's going up in terms of enrollment at the master's level, MBAs? And again, I'm a little surprised here because this program's been a bit challenged recently. So it's good to see that it's still very, very large. Business analytics, number 2. And then we get to, again, an eclectic group: health counseling up 75, registered nursing up 73,000, mental health counseling up 39, counseling psychology up 31. So 4 of our largest programs here are healthcare related. That's not a surprise, always been a huge space and a huge need actually in the job market as well. On the tech side, we have computer science, and it's the only one that actually makes this list. I'm a little surprised at the master's level we don't see cybersecurity as well. One point here is if you're thinking about launching a computer science program or you have one and it seems under-enrolled, this is heavily dependent on international students. The last time I checked, which was a couple of years ago, 80% of the students taking a master's degree in computer science were from overseas. And I think we're going to see a chilling effect there as we change visa requirements and so forth. So that program may be in for a bit of a tough couple of years as we work through some of the immigration issues. Let's see, on the healthcare side, I think we touched on that. We have education, special ed, and educational leadership, and then one other program, economics, with over 31,000 students enrolled. What's growing fastest? Business analytics. Number 1 by far, more than double the size of the next, double the growth of the next fastest growing program. Computer science also up very substantially, 26,000 additional students over the 5-year period. Mental health counseling up by almost 18,000. Then we have a couple more tech programs, data analytics, cybersecurity, and one more down here at the bottom, artificial intelligence, making our list for the first time. So I'm not surprised to see that making the list. And I think that's going to be one of the ones that grows most rapidly as we move forward. Health had several entries. I mentioned mental health counseling, but also social work, physician assistant, and counseling psychology. Now, let's take a moment to look at international. And what we're going to see here are some not very surprising trends, but nonetheless disappointing. So if we look at international page views by award level, they declined 26% at the bachelor's level, 45% at the master's level, and 7% at the doctoral level. So our discussions of immigration in the United States are being heard, unfortunately, in a very negative way internationally. These are important students for the health of U.S. higher education. Many of them pay full price, so it's a key ingredient financially, and they also bring different perspectives to the classroom. So disturbing to see such a sharp drop-off. Where was the growth highest? The Trucial Sheikdoms, Qatar, Oman, and we have one more, Bahrain, all on this list. My suspicion is what we're seeing here is that the presidential visit let folks know that people from these countries would still be welcome in the U.S., and therefore they didn't have the same feeling that many of the people in the rest of the world do about the U.S. as a destination. Then we see Cameroon, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, again, a country the president visited, Zimbabwe, Australia, Malaysia, and Jamaica, all in the fastest growth category for countries, students considering the U.S. as a destination. What grew fastest at the bachelor's level? Not surprising to see engineering at the top of the list. I've never seen animal sciences on this list before, so that's intriguing that people are coming here, I assume, as a pre-vet kind of a veterans, it's not veteran, but pre-veterinary study. Then we have math, again, engineering. These are sort of stereotypical international students programs, but then some much more unusual animation, music performance, nutrition, marketing, physics, all making our top 10 for growth. And of course, one thing to notice when the overall growth rate is negative is after 10, the rest of the programs are in decline. Actually, after 9, food science is already negative. Now, if you look at the master's level, the top 10 in terms of growth are all declining. So there isn't a single program at the master's level where interest in attending a U.S. program isn't down. You can see the least decline is in economics and econometrics. You've got, again, lower declines in arts and logistics, getting to pretty substantial declines by the time you get down to chemical engineering and registered nursing.
Bob, do you have time for a quick question?
Sure.
We are a community college with some BAS degree offerings. One is in computer science and technology that will be launched in the fall of 2025. Congratulations. There has been a lot of interest in the program because it has a cybersecurity component as well as AI and machine learning and data analytics. Do you think this degree would better serve students who was entirely focused on one of these specializations?
So here's what I think. Great program, do it. In parallel, you should have programs in AI and machine learning, a separate program in data analytics. Have all three. And cybersecurity I didn't mention, but you should, those are big programs by themselves. So should you have a computer science and technology program? Absolutely. Should you also have programs in those fields? I think you really should. And, will the sum of the students that enrolled in all those programs, be, what's the right way to say it? Are those going to cannibalize a little bit? Yeah, they will. On the other hand, overall, you'll have more students enrolled than you would if you offered just one of those 4 programs or 2 of them. So I think it will lead to net growth. Now, that's my opinion. If you want a better answer to that, what we should do is run our predict program size model and see what the prediction would be for those programs. So we have a little bit more data and empirical evidence than Bob's opinion on a webinar. So I would, those are all good programs. I'd have them all, is my short answer to your question. Let's see what's going on out there in jobs. Now we have an understanding of what students want. What are employers doing? Well, job postings in the US remain up. I think there's a concern that we're going into recession. There are lots of reasons why we might go into recession, but there's no data yet that I've seen, except for last month's GDP, which was a bit weird because of the it was driven a lot by the import-export ratios rather than fundamental things happening in the US. But very few indicators that we're actually in a recession. So I think, again, we're doing lots of things that probably will provoke a recession, but my data doesn't yet say that we actually have one. And the unemployment rate I just checked before I got on the call remains steady at 4.2%. So that's good news and bad news. The good news is that the economy remains apparently fairly strong. Your graduates are likely to get jobs. The bad news is that's not great for enrollment. So the truth is that if you want to figure out what's going to happen with enrollment, you generally can look at the unemployment rate. And when the unemployment rate goes up, so does enrollment in college and vice versa. So as long as the unemployment rate is steady, I think we'll continue to see the enrollment rates maybe ticking up, but as they did this time, very modestly, 0 to 1%. If the unemployment rate starts to go up from there, then I think we'll see rapid growth in enrollment. Now, notice that I'm not telling you that there's a demographic cliff. Happy to go through that dialogue with anybody that would like to. We have analyzed that fairly extensively. We can't find a substantial relationship between the number of people born 20 years ago and the number of people who go to college. It's not that that's not a factor. It is. It explains about 7% of the variation in enrollment. That leaves 93% unexplained when you by demographics. So I would not boil a demographic cliff into your plans. It's anybody's guess how many people are going to enroll in college, and it's going to be much more heavily dependent on the economy than on demographics. When you look at it at a national level, some 70% of the change in enrollment is explained by the change in the unemployment rate. That's contrasted with 7% for demographics. And again, it's just a very complicated phenomenon. And what's happening that's been hurting enrollment is not that we've had too few high school graduates or too few people aged 18. The problem is that they've been choosing not to go to college. And that's a very fundamental issue. I think all of you can get after if you choose to. The rationale for going to college has actually never been stronger. People way overemphasize how much it costs. Now I'm going to take an extreme example on the other side. It's only $7,000 a year to go to college at University of Nebraska. Last I checked, and that was been about a year ago, but the state legislature, I believe, has capped their tuition, so it's probably much the same. I challenge anyone to find daycare for that much money. So there are colleges in the US that are extremely cost effective, and the average debt for a graduate is not $150,000. It's $30,000, $31,000, I believe, which is, I said this, that's less than a car. And then one of the people in the room when I said that was a car dealer, and she said, I don't have any cars on my lot for $31,000. So we've got to get this back into perspective. And the return on a college and education, based on the data from the Georgetown Center for Workforce and Education, is about $918,000 in present value. So I invest $30,000 and I get $918,000. That's a good deal. I'm sorry. If you can find that deal for me, I'll take it all day long. So I think we need to get the message out that much of what people are hearing is not correct, and college is still a good deal. It's not for everybody, but for those who can attend and succeed in college, it's a very good deal. So fastest growing US industries. What we're seeing here, I found interesting, retail is actually growing again. Up 5,422 job postings. Restaurants and cafes up 3,400. Could be a little seasonality here in the cafes as they, some of them open up for summer and, can put tables out in the sidewalks. But if you think about it, retail's been a declining category for some time because of Amazon and other things. So it's interesting to see it back towards the top of this list. We've got three finance fields that are growing: banking and lending, accounting and tax, investment and asset management. Some tech growth, internet web services, and computer hardware development. And then a few more random things, preschools and childcare. They're just things that don't fit in any other category. Business consulting and catering and food service contractors. In terms of job titles, business-oriented job titles dominate the list. General and operations managers up 63,000 postings. Retail salespeople up 23,000. Administrative assistants up 22,000. And then we have a series of these that are all up about 12,000. Marketing managers, customer service reps, and accountants and auditors. And we do have a couple of tech fields that made the list: software developers and computer users support specialists. Let me take a moment on the software developer side of things. It is a bit surprising when you think about AI to see growth in the number of job postings for software developers. Now, that is probably less growth than there was a couple of years ago. I haven't fact-checked that, but I would guess that it is. That's been a rapidly growing field for a long time. And I do expect that AI will dampen the need for software developers. But it will be very interesting to watch whether it actually reduces the need. I think what it's going to allow us to do is develop more software with the software developers that we have and that we'll add in the future. And they just won't be coding the same way. They'll be using AI to code. But the result is they'll be 3 to 10 times faster writing code than we are today. Well, that doesn't mean we need fewer coders. What it means is we'll be able to code all the things that have been sitting in the backlog in IT for the last 50 years. Not that I'm bitter about that, but boy, oh boy, is it tough to get code written and to innovate. It just takes a long time. Takes a long time to work to get the coding written and to work the bugs out and so forth. So if AI can help us with that, what we'll see, I hope, is not a decline in need for software developers, but an increase in the innovation that we can generate per hour of software development time. And that should unleash a wave of innovation, not a wave of layoffs in software. What are the fastest growing jobs at the bachelor's level and above? Well, interesting. Software developers, applications, number one. So those are the folks who use software to build a particular application for a business. Registered nursing, number two. And by the way, registered nursing has a lot of job postings all the time, as many of you know. We have had a shortage and it continues. We also have in sort of other things, elementary education, coaches and scouts. Then we have 4 business entries on the list: retail sales, marketing managers, sales managers, and financial analysts. And finally, the engineers make the list with 1,800 civil engineers in terms of growth, 1,800 initial incremental job postings for those folks. And industrial engineers have an increase of 1,700 job postings in the month of April. So what skills are needed out there? This I found really intriguing this morning. We've got automation up by 11,000. So maybe some of those manufacturing jobs really are coming onshore, a trend that actually started some time ago. Computer science also up substantially. Analytics up almost 10,000 in terms of job postings that mention a need for analytical skills. Python also makes the list, not surprising. Most popular computer software coding language that I am aware of. Healthcare, only one entry: mental health. Significant increase in requests for mental health expertise. And then in the business world, we have marketing, project management, finance, and risk management, all making our top 10. And they have one other: construction, with 6,400 additional requests for construction skills in our job data. Now, let me take a moment, and for those of you who attend regularly, I won't take too long on this. It is one of my hobby horses, but it's really very important. There is a perception out there about many programs that there are very few job opportunities for the graduates. So public health is one of those, and there are many others, especially in the liberal arts, but not exclusively. It really affects all academic programs. And the underlying problem is that the crosswalk between an academic program and the jobs that that person might get was formulated by labor market economists, I don't know how long ago, well over a decade ago. And the premise was that they would only count occupations that were directly linked to the training that an individual had. So if you studied public health, you were trained and able to be a medical and health services manager, as an example. And you can see when you use that logic that for public health graduates, there are only 4 occupations that they're eligible for, and only about 6,000 jobs in those occupations. Now then, one of the problems is when you go to the godfather source of all this is the National Center for Education Statistics. And on the webpage for the crosswalk, it says this crosswalk is not based on empirical data. And that's a direct quote. And you might wonder then what the heck is it based on? And if we look at empirical data, what do we find? So here's what you find. Public health graduates don't go into 4 occupations. We have data on 325,000 graduates from over 7,000 institutions. What we found is they go into 778 occupations. That is a big difference from 4. And so when you think about traditional labor market data and labor market data suppliers, be super careful. Most of the information that they'll give you about jobs for graduates is wrong. And it's not a little bit wrong. It's wrong by over a multiple of over 100 in many cases. That is, there are 100 times more occupations than those sources will tell you. And when you look deeply at the information, what I tend to find is there is, in fact, some linkage between what people studied and what they ultimately do. But they go into all sorts of fields with a given occupation. So you can see, yeah, we have some medical and health services managers here. They made the list. Some people became CEOs. Now, this is not what you think. This is not a CEO of a Fortune 500 company with 27,000 people, because there are only 500 Fortune 500 companies. But it is the most senior person in the business. So that could be the barber who owns a barbershop, and a variety of other issues. So don't do as I did and think that that means that all us liberal arts graduates becomes, what we commonly think of as CEOs. Not quite right. But we do become managers, and we become general and operations managers, medical and health services managers, marketing managers, project managers. We do advertising and promotions. Some of us go into computers. Some of us become sales managers. And here's one, health educators that you would expect from a public health graduate. But if I take general and operations managers, the 3rd most common career for somebody out of public health, let's go back. That is not even on the list of that you would get from a traditional labor market data supplier or for NCES. So when you look at the facts, there are many, many more occupations available to graduates than traditional data sources would suggest. There's also an implication for you as educators. When you understand what people really do, think about what skills they need to be doing all these different sorts of things, and the importance of a sound general education in order to support those activities. And, I think of this as reading, writing, and arithmetic. To do these jobs well, you need to be able to communicate effectively. You do need to be able to do analysis. And you have to develop a sense of judgment about how to understand and interpret information from a situation, aka critical thinking. So those are really vital skills in addition to whatever they need to learn specifically about public health. So now let's do a big gear shift and start looking at emerging technology. Now, among emerging technologies, there is kind of the first amongst many, and that is AI. And we hear about this constantly. I admit I'm an AI bigot. I think it is just unbelievable in what it can do. And I recognize that there are going to be some very serious issues with it as well. I'm just hoping that the guys with white hats, the folks with white hats, I should say, are going to get going faster than the black hats. So what's actually happening? Job postings with natural language processing, or NLP. This is you entering in something like Google Gemini. I want to find out about the number of people in Malawi, and its ability to understand that and give you back an answer in English. That's natural language processing. And you can see here that there's growth 90% growth year over year, and they're very at a high level running through January, February, March, April compared to last year. So, and particularly February and March were good. It seems to have dropped a little bit in April. There is some seasonality in job postings that may explain that, but we'll keep an eye on it moving forward. In any case, year over year, very rapid growth. Now, if we look at an even more emerging technology, I think most of you have heard of AI software agents. That is software that can go out and do a task for you, book a flight, make a hotel reservation, check the internet for a certain piece of data. That's called agentic AI. And job postings that include the word agentic in them have increased from 2 in April of 2024 to 842 in April of 2025. Within 2025, job postings that include that language have increased at 70% per month. So this is an exploding category. I think it would be easy to think this is a computer science opportunity, a very technical opportunity. One of the things that's really interesting about AI is that there are those deep technical roles. In particular, many of the things people need to build with AI require data engineering. That is the ability to move data from one place to another and put it in a format where the AI can read it. Those are legit technical jobs that you would expect to be done by folks with a computer science background. But a lot of the work in AI can be done in English, whether that's prompt engineering or, in this case, creating agents. The folks behind the big AI platforms are very interested in having what I would call average mortals like me able to use their tools. And so Google recently launched a set of agent tools that are intended to be used by people with limited technical backgrounds. I haven't tried them, so I don't know whether they mean as limited as my technical background. That's always if I can do it, I know it's pretty easy technically. But that's where they're headed, and it's only going to get easier as we move forward because the AI itself knows how to interpret English commands and turn them into code, which limits the need for the person who's creating the bot to know that code. So this is a big opportunity, and it's not just an opportunity for techies. Many of our liberal arts majors, even artists, are going to be able to use AI and agentic technologies to create. So I think it's one of the few technologies that I've seen in my life where the average person can use it. There isn't a steep technical barrier to taking advantage of AI. And I think, therefore, it creates an opportunity for lots of programs to think about how to integrate those skills and increase their apparent relevance from a job market perspective. And I understand that making yourself relevant from a job market perspective is not necessarily the first thing you want to do. And I empathize with that, but it is a way of, if you can integrate these things into a program, I think it's a way of drawing students back to some of the programs that have, the liberal arts programs in particular, that have been languishing. And I have to fully disclose, I am a liberal arts major. So to me, that seems like an important thing to do. Now, you might well ask, okay, that's great. Well, show me, what can this stuff actually do? So let me show you a couple of things that we have right now in our labs. This is work under development, should be coming to market in about the next month. We'll have an AI tutor we're calling College Companion, and we'll have a series of College Companions for you, and I'll show you two of them. One will be a tutor, one is going to be a career advisor, and a third one will work on communications. So let's have a look at what these things can do. Now, keep in mind, this is a hypothetical student, one of our developers, who's showing this chart to the AI system for the first time.
The class today talked a lot about carburetors, but I'm really not 100% clear on what a carburetor is and what it does. I think this is what this is, right?
Okay, I see that you've shared a slide titled Clear Carburetor Teardown/Discussion with an image of a carburetor. A carburetor is a device in an internal combustion engine that mixes air and fuel to create a combustible mixture. Is there anything specific about the carburetor that you'd like to discuss?
Well, my professor gave me this slide right here that has some lines pointing to specific parts of the carburetor, but I don't really know what they do or what they mean. Can you describe what these are simply to me?
Certainly, I can describe those parts. In the image you've shared, there are labels pointing to idle air bleed, high-speed air bleed, and bowl vent. An air bleed is a small hole that introduces air into the fuel stream to help atomize the fuel for proper combustion. The idle air bleed is responsible for the air-fuel mixture when the engine is idling. The high-speed air bleed works with the main jet to regulate the air-fuel mix when the engine is running at higher speeds. The bowl vent is a hole that allows air pressure in the fuel bowl to equalize with the outside pressure. Does that make sense so far?
It's really confusing. Can you explain it super simply?
Okay, let's try simplifying it further. Think of a carburetor like a kitchen sink with different faucets. The idle air bleed is like a tiny faucet that lets a little air into the fuel mixture when the engine is at a slow pace. The high-speed air bleed is like another faucet that mixes air into the fuel when the engine goes fast. And the bowl vent is like a tiny breather that lets the air move around to keep everything balanced. Is this clearer?
All right, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you. There was a video
You'd like to
I'm going to jump here.
about car mechanics and repair, and I was wondering if you could help me understand what's going on in the video.
Sure, I can help you with that. Do you have any specific questions about the car mechanic video?
Well, I have it up right here, but I don't understand what is going on with this part of the car. I was wondering if you could help me.
Okay, I can certainly try to help. The video you're showing is about a Holley 1850 carburetor. Is there anything specific about the video that you would like me to explain?
Well, what is the person doing in this video right now?
In the video, the person is using a flathead screwdriver to adjust the idle mixture screw on the Holley 1850 carburetor. They are turning the screw to fine-tune the fuel-air mixture at idle speed. Would you like more information about this process?
Yeah, can you tell me more about it? Because I need to know this for my class tomorrow.
Certainly, let me elaborate on the idle mixture screw. It controls the amount of fuel that's mixed with air at idle. The screw is turned clockwise to lean out the mixture by reducing the fuel, and counterclockwise to richen the mixture by adding more fuel. Is there anything else you need explained for your class?
Do you see this liquid that's coming out? What is that?
Yes, I do see the liquid. Based on the context of the video, it appears to be gasoline leaking from the carburetor. It's not unusual for a small amount of fuel to leak out when working on a carburetor. However, a large leak should be addressed. Is there anything else I can help you with?
What is he doing here?
So let's jump
In the
forward here a
video-
little bit. And so that's our tutor. You can see it can certainly handle text. We didn't bother to demonstrate that. It can handle a page in PowerPoint, and it can handle video and explain it to a student. And it can explain it at whatever level of abstraction the student can handle, from relatively sophisticated technical language to fairly basic analogies. Yeah, Bruce, thank you very much. I've always been worried that that might not be exactly what that was. That's why this is a beta, and we're going to have a lot of testing to do as we begin to move this forward. Now, I will say, if you're interested, I would love to have someone that could load course material with us and help us test the system's ability to give accurate information for on a given course area. So let's keep
The
going.
class today
Excuse me. This is our career companion, and this is a chatbot to help students decide what they want to do with their life. And let me just give you an example. In this case, we're going to ask it to help with preparing for job interviews.
Can we do a mock interview
I'm going to jump ahead a shade.
involved?
The kind of job you're preparing for. What role and industry are we simulating?
The role we're simulating is a data science role involved with pollution.
Okay, a data science role involved with pollution. Got it. Let's get started. Tell me about a time you had to work with a large data set to solve a problem. What steps did you take and what was the outcome?
So one example of a time I used data science to solve a problem was with my thesis that I just completed on people falling in love with robots. It used a quantitative analysis of people's interviews to figure out how people were feeling about the robots.
That's interesting. Using quantitative analysis to understand people's feelings about robots is definitely a unique application of data science. Feedback when answering behavioral questions like this It's helpful to use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Briefly describe the situation, explain the task you were assigned, detail the actions you took, and highlight the results you achieved. This structure makes your answer clear and easy to follow. What are some common data visual?
So that's an example of Career Companion helping out a person better explain what they've done. And these are obviously emerging, and at the moment they're in beta. We would very much welcome the opportunity to work with schools to refine the tools and make sure, as Bruce pointed out, that we're providing correct information through them. And that's going to be a one-at-a-time process by subject area, I think. I was looking at this for math yesterday, and it did explain the problem. But for example, a vocalization of the text didn't correctly express a power. So it said, when the equation said 3 to the second power, it read 3-2, which obviously is incorrect. So there's going to be a lot of tuning required of the general AI applications in order to make this work. And we'd be happy to do that with all of you, and also make sure that the way it works is resonates with your students, so that they're eager to use the tools. They do have tremendous cost advantages potentially, so they can amplify, for example, tutoring, and allow you to reach all your students with tutoring at a much lower cost than could be done with people, if those people are even really available. And of course, the AI is happy to talk to you at midnight. So, summary, Google searches for academic programs rose 25% year over year. Healthy growth rate suggests that we are going to continue to see some growth in enrollment in higher ed, certainly not 25%, but still good growth. Business administration management grew by 250,000 searches, and the average cost per click is staying steady at around 14. In fall 2024, we saw enrollment increase at both the bachelor's and master's level. Huge sigh of relief there. I think we've been going through a decline for quite some time. It's nice to see it seems to be ending. And I'm optimistic that we're not going to see a demographic cliff. I hope I'm not proven wrong. Computer science was one of our fastest growing programs, over 74,000 students. And Masters in Business Analytics grew by almost 56,000 students. Both of those, if you think about it, are either a splinter off a bigger program, or likely to see programs splinter off from them. So computer science, I think we're going to see students that want to take AI, and that's going to cannibalize a bit of the computer science enrollment, but probably lead to more people in the field overall than were there before. And similarly, business analytics is peeling some people out of business, but overall, both are growing. In April, international page views fell 38%, not surprising given what's going on in the world. Master's programs fell even faster, 45%. At the bachelor's level and above, job postings are up 3% a year, so your graduates should be able to get a job out there. And in April, general and operations managers had the highest volume of job postings. Software developers actually had the highest growth year over year, coming off a pretty bad decline last year as many of the major tech companies ran layoffs. Public health grads go into 778 occupations, not 4. So check your labor market data. If it's telling you that there are 4 or 5 careers for public health, occupations for public health graduates, make sure you get another source, because that's not correct. New AI skills are emerging constantly and at a very rapid rate. And new AI tools, including tutors and career advisors, are coming out for higher education. So I hope that we can build some of those for you and with you, and that they can allow us to better educate students at a lower cost. In particular, I think these things can help out the underserved students who come to college with relatively low levels of preparation and really need a helping hand. So that's it for today. I welcome any additional questions, and please feel free to get in touch directly with me if you'd like to. My name is Bob Atkins. My email is bob.atkins@graydi.us. So bob.atkins@graydi.us. Thank you all very much.